did a lead call, so now what do you do with that information? Well, I went ahead and used my little handy sheet here, and I've started my now profile for my new inquiry. And so for the first thing that we want to do when you're entering, or when you have a new inquiry that contacts you, we have to go straight to CVUE after you've documented your little notes on who this person is. Go to CVUE, and you want to make sure that you first check to see if they're in the system. And so I've made it a habit where I've asked, have you contacted us before, or have you requested information from us before? And so that's a good indicator to know whether or not they're in the system. And so most of the time they'll say, well, I requested something, but I hadn't heard back, or it was a while ago. I don't know if I'm in your system or anything like that, but we can go through and we'll double check, and we'll do it by duplicate checking. So the first thing that you want to do when you first log into CVUE, it sets you up with your own profile for your campus, correct? So for me, you see it says Atlanta. So the very first thing before I do anything else is I will change this to say all campuses in database. So when you first log in, if you change it to all campuses in database, it will stay that way until it times out and you have to log back in, or until you log out and you come back the next day. So as long as you have it for all campuses in database, you can search every site, every college. And so today, my Megan DeLong changed her name to Janice Cooper. So that's going to be our student for today that we'll work on. And you're Janice. And so I put in the first few letters, because Cooper, sometimes it may be C-U-P, never seen it that way, but I'm going to go with C-O-O-P for today. I'll just put the first few initials and see if she's in there. Woo! Look, there is a Janice Cooper. Coincidence? Let's see who, and I'll pull her up and see if this is the same person. And one indicator could be, well, she was active for our undergrad program in Henry. One, she told us she went to Valdosta, Clayton, and UGA. So this is not the same Janice Cooper. Okay? So what we'll do, I'll also check phone number. Her phone number was 478. I don't see that number in here. So that's another indicator. She also told me that her email was janice.cooper@gmail.com. So that's not her. So those are good indicators to say, okay, this is not the same person. I can go ahead and create a new record for her. So you want to use your binoculars. And if I'm going too fast for anyone that is not too familiar with CVUE, please let me know and I will slow down. Not binoculars, I'm sorry. The blank page here is what we want to use when we're entering a new lead. This gives you the option of having all the fields to populate for a new lead record. Anything that you see in the green must be filled out in order for the record to be saved. Any other information in the white fields you can fill in as well. So as much information you get up front is as much information you can put into CVUE. I like to use titles for someone that may be Kim, who is a Mr. We do have one that's a Mr. Kim, I don't know his last name. Dula. What was it? Dula. Yeah, so you'll want to know when you're following up with someone whether it's a Mr. or Mrs. So in that case, it's good to use this field. So I always use it, especially when I'm talking with someone on the phone, to recognize whether they're Mr. or Mrs. or even Doctor. And so she is Janice Cooper. We'll go ahead and put her in. And how you type it in here is how it will show on a report. So you want to make sure that you're using initial cap, lower cap, and making sure you don't abbreviate, that you spell things out, because you can use mail merge when we get to reporting fields, and we'll show you how that works later. So make sure you do initial cap in lowercase. And so she is now at 1300 Ross Street in Atlanta. She moved from Macon. And we had her phone number, so we put that in. It's important to use telephone, the telephone field, as the main number that student will use. If we know it's a mobile or cell phone number, I will also put it in that field. The reason why I say use telephone is because that's the one field that you can search later on. If maybe I spelled her name C-O-P and I was trying to follow up with her, or she called me back and said, I requested information last week, but I didn't receive it. Can you resend? And I'm going to CVUE trying to find her, but I can't. I'll use her phone number to see what happened. Maybe I mistyped something. So make sure you put it in the telephone field. And then I make it a habit to also note that it is her cell phone number. Gender, I will also go ahead and state that she's female versus male. Not required, but I will go ahead and populate some of those fields that I know. And then go ahead and enter her email. And if you notice, I am using other email. Anyone know why I use other email?
Because if they're accepted, they'll populate a Mercer email from their first email.
And what happens to their personal email? It disappears. It does not show up in any other field within CVUE. So very important, this is something that we learned when we first went live with CVUE, to start using the other email field. And so that way when they are accepted, it'll populate their Mercer Live student email, and then you'll also have their personal email to use. This information here, we normally do not enter that information until they have applied, or we receive a document that has that information on there to identify who they are. The next step here, it will show your campus. It does populate the campus that's your home institution. So if Heidi logs in, it should say Regional Academic Center when she's creating an inquiry, even though we're searching all campuses. So make sure you distinguish it too. When you're searching, it's only searching all campuses, but when you're entering an initial inquiry, it will flag it for your site as Regional Academic Center versus Atlanta. So she will be an Atlanta student. The school status, very important, and if you want to use your handout that's in your packet, there's two things. You have your CampusVUE status umbrella here, this one, and then you should also have a CampusVUE school status spreadsheet that defines what those type of leads are. And throughout the day, we'll try to go through and progress from an inquiry all the way through an applicant to give you an idea of how you go from status to status. So now, when they're first put into the system, we have a marketing intern that will enter our electronic leads for us. They'll be put in as an inquiry, and if you look on your sheet, it doesn't show it here, but inquiry stands for new. So that's how you know that it's a hot prospect, someone who has recently contacted you, and we need to respond as quickly as possible. Like Tracy said, our competitors are responding as quickly as they can, and the first one that forms that relationship and that bond, they'll most likely enroll. And so that's how you know who are your new leads versus someone that's an old lead or an applicant. And so since I've already talked to Janice, I will go ahead and change her to contacted. So why do I do that? I change it to contacted because that then tells us, if you look at the definition, that I've now spoke with this person, or I've reached out to that person, left a voicemail, sent an email, sent a packet. And so you want to use contacted whenever you have attempted to reach out to the student, or they've called you and you've talked to them on the phone. So you never want to leave them in the inquiry status category unless you have not spoken to them yet. That's a good indicator when you're looking at a report who to follow up with versus who is new. So you always want to change them to contacted once you've made that contact with the prospect. So the lead source, that was the question that Tracy asked. How did you hear about Mercer? And it was her friend, I think. And so there you go, you can select friend. So that way we know that it could have been, and I think it was a previous student, maybe. It was a previous student. And you could, if they had graduated, sometimes we can use alumni. But I want to say sometimes they say friend, so we'll use friend. What is her lead type? Undergrad students would be either freshmen if they never enrolled, transfer if they do have some college credits, graduate if it's a master's degree or specialist degree that they're interested in, and then professional if they're looking at our PhD program. So for this prospect, she will be a graduate student because she is looking at the MED in early childhood education. The admissions rep, in this case, I spoke with the person, but I don't necessarily work with that program. So who does? Miss Evelyn Johnson. So I will go ahead and choose her as the admissions rep. So you see what I'm doing here. Even though I do not necessarily will follow up with the prospect because I don't handle the online programs, I go ahead and put their information in CVUE so we can document that we talked with them. Their interest. This is key, and I think we may have talked about this in our product knowledge training for some of you that were in attendance. You want to tie their interest to the degree program first and then the concentration. So for her, it's the MED program, so you would go down to MED. And you see the MED options. And then you see their concentrations or their area of study or their degree seeking option, which is early childhood education here. It's very important to tie it to the degree program and then their area of concentration. So that way, reporting, it's again, like Tracy said, there's a trickling effect. It's all tied to reporting in the program. And that's how you, when you're talking about reaching your goal, how do we get there? Well, we need to know how many folks are in our online program or have requested information to know if we're about to reach that goal or if we're a few students off. And so we need to work a little harder. So this is all tied to that. Same thing with bachelor students. You'll see them that they'll say BSE, their concentration. Or MBA, you'll see MBA in there, whether it's professional, evening, day. And so you can tie it to every program that we have. The program is actually the college. So you want to make sure they have undergrad options and graduate options. The first selection, Tiff College of Education /GR, that's actually grad, so some of them you cannot see the graduate option. So just know, for instance, we'll go up here to College of Health Professions. The top choice is always grad. The bottom choice, the second option, is always undergrad. You then want to make sure you select her site for Atlanta. And I will change this because I'm setting it up for Evelyn. All online programs are regional academic center, and I'm surprised she didn't say, hey, it should be RAC. I'm used to doing it for me. You were thinking it? Okay, I'm going to fix it. And so if you make a mistake, I make mistakes, you know, just go back and fix it. And so we can change it again and just add her back. That's all it's doing. It doesn't mind. It's okay to make mistakes. Like Domino's, that's their slogan right now. It's okay to make mistakes. I said, you're right. So there we go. So now we're on track. So go back down again and choose Tiff College grad. And her site, and I said that because online programs are distance learning. So they're not tied to a site. So that's why I wanted to fix it. And so that's usually how I catch myself, because I know I'm assigning it to Evelyn. Well, I know they're not going to attend Atlanta. I was like, oh, I did it wrong to start out. So I went and fixed it. So distance learning. And so expected start date, very important. We always use the next term available unless they indicated they want to start next year. So here, we'll put in the next term available. Oops, I always do that backwards. August 18th, 2014 is when she could start for fall session 1. Okay?
Are you in test?
I'm in train,
You're trained?
so we can kind of play around.
Okay, just for friends and giggles, on their expected start, transpose 2014 to 2041.
And leave it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So that looks like 2014 to me. And so now we've learned that she earned her bachelor's degree from UGA. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we indicate that this person has a bachelor's degree. Okay? Why? It's tied to qualifying the inquiry. We've already qualified that she has a bachelor's degree in early childhood education, which is a requirement to pursue the MED in early childhood education. If she was pursuing, like Tracy said, the specialist, or said she wanted information on the specialist program and only said she had a bachelor's degree, that will tell you right off the bat that she doesn't qualify for that program. So let's talk through options that you do have with Mercer.
The next critical education is highest level completed.
Highest level completed, thank you, yes. You could have someone that has a master's degree and they want to go back and earn a different type of master's degree. They certainly can do that. So we would, and I would in that case, change it and say they have a master's degree. Even though they might be inquiring about another master's degree, that's okay. because they're allowed. Okay, so we'll go and we'll put her in. And so I go through and I kind of spot check to make sure I have everything correct. I've entered all the information that I can as far as contact information. I verify that I've typed her number correctly, her email correctly, and the program and the site. And so now we're ready to save. And I'm glad I chose Janice Cooper because this will happen if it recognizes another Janice Cooper. So it will go in and say, I think you might have a possible duplicate. Okay, well let me view that duplicate. Even though we did it in the beginning, it's going to do it again, just to make sure. So go through and you check again, okay, number's different, she's not an undergrad at Mercer, never attended, so I know this is not her. Close that Student Master menu, and then hit Save New. Very important that you hit Save New, because now it will save the record for you.
What if you just hit save? What would happen?
That's interesting because I'm entering a new lead. Wow. Maybe we can't use train, Tracy.
That's pretty good production, look at that.
Let me try one more time. No. And look, it's giving me a different student each time. Okay, so train doesn't want to work for us today.
You keep going, it'll get you, it'll cycle itself out.
Why is it doing that?
Yeah, because there's people already maybe training at the same time and it isn't caught up
Okay.
with the numbers yet.
Well, bear with me. Have you done that before? Because I would love to stay in train so that we can push her on through.
I believe so, if I'm remembering correctly.
Renee's fast. Of course, she's done this once or twice.
Maybe.
But it is important too, as you're doing this, there's so many things you want to make sure you check to not be distracted and to not get, off course with it, because you look away and you check something wrong and all of a sudden the record doesn't make sense when you go back and try and look for it again.
And then you can see after you got the 31,
I'll come back and do the reports.
Who asked if you just hit save?
Me.
Okay. When I hit save, it populates your duplicate checking, and it's going to ask you save new at this point. Because when I first said I wanted to save the record, I hit save here, and then this is when your duplicate record box pops up. It's automated. And now you have to either hit save new or process duplicate because it was the same person.
See, the numbers are going up, right?
Okay.
3, 4.
It had reserved one for you and somebody else already took it in train. Okay.
I'm trusting you, Heidi.
When I see you Whoa!
Unless, are they validating right now for some reason?
At least
I don't think I've seen a message where we had to validate anything.
No.
Oh, no.
From what I understand, the student, when I was doing some testing with the final record, this would come up, and as long as we kept processing it, we'd finally find a number that was not used, because.
These are numbers that are already used.
Correct.
Well, it should pull it for a new because we're,
The student number is empty, and then it should be pulled for a brand new.
Renee, go ahead and hit save. Did you get it?
bam, and that's how you do it. Or hashtag boom, because she just left. There we go. Okay. So now I've saved my new record. Did you want to touch on this now, or you want to wait until the reporting?
The start date?
Yes.
Well, just note, I mean, we deliberately put the wrong start date in there, which, I mean, anybody can make a typing error. It won't tell you. It won't tell you that your date is not meaningful or real. It will take it. And then, as how many of you pull reports based on start dates? Okay, so when you put in a start date, even if you go for a range showing, what would you put in if you were looking for a report for fall?
Fall semester start date.
And
But as you taught us before, you put in the first day of the month and the last day of the month.
Right, so at best, you would have 8/1/2014 to 8/31/2014. Would that show up in that report? So how do you find it again? That's one of the things we'll talk about in the reporting section.
So I will fix this.
No,
You want me to leave it?
please.
Okay, I'll leave it. And so now the very next step. Activities. Oh, geez. And see, and now this on, Tracy knows this about me.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'll leave it.
Going to continue the presentation.
I will try. I don't do people in dress-up costumes. Was that on the mic? Could you hear that? Oh, sorry. Okay, and so what do? We captured all the information, correct? And so now we need to document our conversation. So very first step, after you've talked to the person, you got them on their way, you gave them Evelyn's number or their contact, you told them where to go to follow up with more information, and now we need to document. We've created the record, we now need to document. So I'll go back. You go to Contact Manager and Activities. This is key for all of our team members at all of our sites. Why? It will show you a list of all communication, whether it's faculty, staff, student, within the organization. So this is why this is very important. So what do? I go in and I say, it was an incoming phone call from a prospect, Miss Janice Cooper. We're going to say status complete because the call was complete. We just want to document that phone call and our conversation. The activity result, the call was completed. Okay? This is for an initial phone call, which you would normally have every day, whether incoming or outgoing. Comments. This is where you're going to document your conversation. And this is just kind of to give you an idea of who the person was, like your student profile for follow-up. So if next week I now need to follow up with her to make sure she received the information, she reviewed the information, what are your next questions or any follow-up questions or concerns that you may have about the program? Because within the next 7 to 10 days, they should have made a decision that they feel Mercer is a good fit. So this is how you know what your conversation was about. So I'll say spoke with, or what I like to say is that prospect called. Why would I say that? Is because they initiated the contact with me. It's a very good indicator that they are very interested in your program. Prospect called. And so then I'll say spoke with, and I'm sorry if I use acronyms, but that's, you got to keep it short because you're entering a ton of information. Spoke with about MED early childhood, went over program design because we talked about whether she wants online versus the campus base. And I'll put bachelor's from UGA, also attend, and why do I also want to note what school she attended? And Clayton State. Any other information we might want to put? Yes, she's asking about the MED in early childhood. I need to know that she's a certified teacher in early childhood education. For business, for someone who's asking about the executive MBA, we need to know whether they've been in management for 1 year or they've been in management for what, 6 or 7? So you want to note that here because that's all about qualifying the prospect. So then we also want to state that she's been teaching 3 years, and I'll put teaching 3 years in early childhood education. I also would like to document maybe what county, and this would only apply to educators, because we would use that going forward. Anything else? Maybe we talked about financial aid. And I just make cliff notes, if you will. Next steps with, if I can type, with FA and program overview or review. We'll follow up with Eveline. So this gives Eveline an indicator of what our conversation was about. I got who she was, what type of program, and if she qualifies in her degree. And so that would be as much information as Eveline probably would need up front, and then she could follow up with her. Yes, go ahead.
Is there a section on the system that indicates where you can put a follow-up date and it will prompt you, give you a notification?
Yes, and I'll show you how to do that. Absolutely.
We did not pay the Corey for that question. That was totally unsolicited.
Okay. Now it's asking you, are you sure you want to close this activity without a follow-up? Always no. Why? Because it's going to allow you to create that follow-up task for this student. So what do I want to do if this were a prospect for me, or even for Eveline? I would say, and you could choose anything out of here, but this is one that I use all the time, every day. Information sharing follow-up. When do I want to follow up? I usually follow up within 2 days just to make sure she got the information. It's Friday, so I'll do it on Monday, give her the weekend. And so I will make a note on what my call or email needs to be about. So I'll just put follow-up on receipt or review of MED ECA info. Because now I can save this. And if you look here, you can see the incoming call, and then you'll see the one for Monday. So when I come in on Monday, I'll see that I have a call for the 30th, and it's going to populate for you. I'll show you where that is. My first thing that I'll do is go in and see what was my previous conversation is about. Okay? Can't remember it all, so we use this as a tool to remember it for us. I put it in, I forget about it, I go on to the next student that I need to work with and talk with. And so put it here and save it, and it'll do it for you. And then when you call her, you'll know what to follow up on. And so that's how we document the initial inquiry and the first step to follow up.